and welcome to Side Projects. I am your host, Joe Tannenbaum, and today we have Leah Thompson. Hi, Leah.
Hi, Joe.
Do you want to give the people a little intro, let them know a little bit about you just to get started?
Sure. So, like Joe said, my name is Leah Thompson. I go by Leah T Codes on Twitter, Twitch, and now YouTube. My background is actually in mathematics, and I worked as a former high school math teacher, and then self-taught myself web development to become a developer. So I've been working as a developer for the past 2 years now.
So you went from high school math teacher to what was I'm just curious, what was the impetus? What decided to drive you into software development?
So it's kind of funny. I always hated teaching. I never wanted to go into teaching. Yeah. So, it's like instantly the hot gossip. No, it's nothing against teachers, because teachers are amazing, but it's I always knew I didn't really want to teach. That wasn't for me. But I graduated during COVID. So I was in Florida and I graduated in May of 2020. And so the jobs I was going to go for were research analyst and stuff like that, because I wanted to do applied mathematics. So I was looking at jobs like that at the University of Florida, but it closed down because of COVID. But I couldn't move because my husband was still in college and we didn't know when it was going to open back up. And DeSantis, the governor of Florida, didn't want to shut down the Florida schools for the start of the school year in August of that year. He wanted it to be in person, so they really needed teachers. So I really needed a job.
The timing of this is wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot. It's I really needed a job to support my husband and I, because he's still in college, and I needed to make more money because I was just a cashier at Publix at the time. So I went into teaching. So I taught high school geometry, and I had to teach half online and half in person during COVID.
You were doing both at the same time. You had a classroom in person and you were also being streamed online.
They wouldn't even let us stream because they were oh, there's issues in case they record the kids talking or whatever, or a kid walks in it. So we had to teach in person, and then I'd have to take time to record videos to post for the online kids, or respond to all these emails and grade all their work.
My goodness. My goodness. That is, yeah. I mean, it's been said a million times, but we don't pay teachers enough for that, for sure. No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, that's cool. And how long did you do that before you got into software?
Only for a year and a half.
Yeah. You were that was my limit. I hit a hard wall, we're out.
It was the first year it was mental health was really bad. The second year it was my physical health was I'm done. And so I ended up in the ER. Ended up in the ER, and then I never went back. I was I'm done.
I think that's reasonable. I think that's your mind and body saying this is not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you got out, and welcome to the wonderful world of software development. So, I'm also self-taught. What was your mechanism? How did you get into it?
I actually did 100 Devs, which is a program that was run by Leon Noel. So it was a free boot camp to learn full stack software development using the MERN stack, so all JavaScript, MongoDB, Express, React, and Node. But he streamed all the classes on Twitch. So whoever wanted to join could join it. The classes were live streamed on Twitch. It was twice a week. It went from January of 2022 to October, November. And then we were in a Discord server, which there's 40,000 people in that server. So it's really big. Yeah. And he would post homework in there, and then you would do the homework and just try to build stuff, try to change little stuff of the homework and stuff like that. And I did that, really got into it, started posting on Twitter and stuff about my projects and about me learning, started live streaming on Twitch during learning it. And then from there, I just kept doing other stuff. So I did Scrimba to learn React more. I did Free Code Camp to learn a little bit of Python, stuff like that.
Nice. Okay. And then what is your day-to-day now? What are you coding in generally?
Day-to-day now, now we're on the Rilt stack. So React Inertia, Laravel, and Tailwind.
I was what's Rilt? I literally, that's wild.
I think I
okay,
say it
I'm with
weird.
you now. No, you don't. You're fine.
Okay.
My brain just was on a 3-second tape delay there. Okay, so Rilt stack. Yes. Okay, cool. Very cool.
I just learned the stack, so don't feel bad. I didn't even know I had a name at first. But whenever I got hired for the project we're on, because it's kind of independent contracting under a friend's agency, but we were first using, it was React, Tailwind, MySQL, but we were using Next.js and Node for the backend. But then we also had like an API built in Rust that like none of us know how to like touch because like we were having issues doing certain things in the Next.js part. And so we were like, screw it, we're going to Laravel. Like we're just going to Laravel from Next.
Hey man, thank you. Yes, yes, please. That's great. So you're relatively fresh to Laravel, is that right?
Yeah, and even when we first transitioned to it, I was doing more of the front end work. Like only lately have I gotten into doing more on the Laravel side, like with the map traversal stuff, the graph traversal stuff I was tweeting about. That has to do with like the stuff I'm having to do on the Laravel side now.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. So that brings us to what sort of stuff are you building? What are you getting into? Like, so you're using it at work, but you're also doing at least one side project. I don't know if you have multiple, but I've been watching the math quiz that you've been building. So can we talk about that? What is the purpose? What are you thinking about with it? Where did it come from? How are you building it?
So the math quiz app, funnily enough, I actually had built it 2 years ago, and it was like my capstone project of like everything I learned.
Yeah.
But I built it using React, just vanilla JavaScript, no TypeScript, no Tailwind, just regular CSS, and using like I think it was Flask, so Python Flask and then Socket.io. So it was kind of a nightmare. It was a nightmare. Like I couldn't get it deployed at the end. It was like one of those things you would touch one line of code and all the socket connection would break.
No,
And it's
yeah.
like, it'd get screwed up, so you're like fighting against it. I didn't know like state management or anything at the time, so it's like prop drilling everywhere. It's
Sure.
a nightmare. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But isn't it fun to like think back on that project and be like, wow, I could build that so much better and so much faster with the tools and the knowledge that I have now. I love looking back on those little projects that you built back in the day and being like, oh man, the problems I was running into are like non-existent in my brain anymore. I just know now. So now you're are you rebuilding it or you're building it fresh, new scope? Like what's the plan of attack on this one?
So I'm rebuilding it, but I'm not like even looking at the other one for reference. I'm just kind of remembering like how I set it up. So like how I first set it up was just getting it to randomly generate the quiz questions. So that's like something I have. It's like instead of having an API that like has some questions I hard coded into it, I like wrote functions to randomly generate the questions.
Cool. So you're building questions on the fly, like and okay, very cool, very very cool. Okay.
Like so right now I have like a seeder and factory set up to like seed the I think it's the problems table with like 100 questions at a time. So it's like I can just keep adding more, and that way people aren't likely to see the same questions over and over again. Because I was scared of that if I like just had, I don't know, like a certain amount that's in the database or in the API that I would have to put in myself, you know, especially because it's supposed to be multiplayer. So I haven't added in reverb yet, but that's why I wanted to rebuild it with Laravel, is because I was at LaraCon and I saw the talk on reverb and I was like,
Yeah.
I bet this would be like amazing to
Dixon
use
did
for
a
the
good
Methods
job
app.
selling that one. He's like, look at this drone I'm flying on stage. Don't you want to use reverb?
It's like, if he can make a drone fly with it, I can at least make my multiplayer math quiz app.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So actually, okay, let's back out. I don't even know what the app does. Tell me what the intention of the app is. Like what do you want it to do?
The intention... Okay, so I basically built it for fun. So mainly for me.
Yeah,
because there
for
was
sure.
an app I used to play on my iPhone, but the like developer quit updating it, so it got taken off the Apple Store. But it was like where you could be quizzed on like calculus concepts and stuff like that. So you would like click integrals and it would give you like 10 or so questions on integrals, and then you choose the answer and you go through, and at the end you get a score. So that's basically like what my app is. But right now it's only for like addition and subtraction, because I just started easy to try to build it up.
I think that's sensible, yeah.
Especially I want to add in multiplayer before I get too crazy about adding in like calculus and everything.
Okay.
But
And so what's the multiplayer mode about? Like how does that work?
basically it's the same idea. Like you go to the website whenever you decide what math operation you want to be quizzed on, like addition, subtraction. Whenever you click that, it will generate a quiz that has 10 problems. So you see those 10 problems, but it will also open up a like socket room, and it would give you like a code that you can copy and give your friends, and they can use that to join the same room as you. So they'd see the same 10 questions that you do, and then you're
Okay.
competing against each other.
Yes. So a time, like a time-based thing or accuracy or both?
So the OG version of it was just accuracy, but
Okay.
I think like a time-based one would be funner.
Yeah.
Add
So it's
even
like
more
whoever can
competition.
get this done all correct first is the winner sort of thing? Is that or
Like
like
whoever
as
gets
many
the
in
highest score.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Do you remember? I don't know if this was just my school, but when I was in elementary school, we used to do what were called Mad Minutes. Did you ever do Mad Minutes? They're
I think
probably,
so.
I mean, kind of a terrible name for it actually, but you had this. You every kid got like a sheet that had like 40 questions on it that was whatever concept you were exploring in math at the time, and they would start a timer, and you had a minute and you would get through as many as you could, but the first one that you got wrong was as many, so you got only as many as you got right in a row. So if you like did all 40 but you got the third one wrong, you only got like a score of 2, and then like whoever like wins the Mad Minute for that day like gets like, I don't know, a pencil or whatever we were giving out. But it was stressful and fun. It was both things, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of that, where there's like a time element, and you're kind of playing against your classmates or your people on the internet. That's cool. And so you already worked with like WebSocket stuff, it sounds like, in the old project. Okay, so now you're just kind of like translating that knowledge over to like, okay, how does reverb work with this? Is
Yeah,
that
and trying to clean it up because before, like, I had never used WebSockets before, so I was trying to use
okay?
it, and it was kind of a mess. Like, at first, I was using, I want to say, I think it was Fast API for the Python backend instead of Flask,
Mm-hmm.
but then the documentation for the Socket.io package for Fast API wasn't documented well, so I could never figure out how to like work it. So then I was like, screw this, I'll go to Flask because Flask had more documentation. I got it working there, but then like between the React, like the front end and the back end, the socket connection was just like a mess. I feel like it was like certain things, like I'd have the socket on connections, but then the socket on connections would like trigger actual like post requests and different stuff. So it definitely could have been. It was a mess.
Well, hopefully, excuse me. Hopefully, the tight integration of like Reverb and Laravel and the stack
Hmm.
that you're using, hopefully, is a smoother situation.
I think it
What
should
what are
be.
you finding most interesting about building this so far?
Basically, just learning more about Laravel, I guess, because it's like I started this, I think, around the same time I started doing Laravel more for work. So of course, there's like stuff I'm doing that's not very PHP developer of me, like the way I write something. So it's like learning how to do that. Like I made a YouTube video of like the walkthrough of my app so far, and Pavilas messaged me and was like, "Can I do a code review?" And like already gave me like pointers of some of the stuff I was doing. Like some of my stuff, I think I had it in like the controller instead of the model, like some of the methods. So he's like, you can move that there. I was using arrays, PHP arrays, and not collections. So I've been learning more about collections, Laravel collections, just little stuff like that. I just like learning. So I feel like I've learned a lot more about Laravel and stuff building something like this.
Did you have PHP in the back pocket before you started this, or are
No.
you learning? So you're learning PHP and Laravel at the same time,
Yeah, so I'm from a obviously from JavaScript background.
right?
Did and also my first job in tech was as an email developer, which is like making
Okay,
HTML and CSS for marketing emails.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so for a year and a half I was just doing that at work. So a lot of my back end skills like laid stagnant. It was just fighting with Outlook and stuff, Like
I knew you were gonna
really
say Outlook. I was like, "There's no way Outlook doesn't get mentioned in this part of the conversation." Yeah, it's rough. It was rough out there for a minute.
I have like a bulletin board with Outlook on it and just throw darts at it. It's like you ruined my life.
I love that. Like setting fire to like Outlook effigies, being like,
It's like whenever I talk to people, I'm just like, did you know that it's like the desktop version of Microsoft Outlook that's for like 2007, 2010 uses Microsoft Word as the rendering engine? Like, it's like,
I
why?
love this. This is why people make money on abstracting this stuff away. They're like, just write your thing, we'll figure out all the rest of it, because email is so complicated to render consistently. I mean, I don't have to tell you.
No.
Like, it's such a pain. It's such a pain.
It's such a pain. And then designers are like, ooh, why don't we do the curved little borders? Or why don't we do a linear gradient? And I'm like, this is email. Like, we're in
Yeah.
1999. We can't get
Exactly.
fancy.
Exactly. We're 20 years away from doing that. That's there. Have you heard of Mazel? It's like it's a way of writing your emails with Tailwind that has a build process that compiles it down to like all of the correct abstractions for all the different clients and things. Might be something of interest to you since you spent so long doing that. But I believe it's called Mazel. Yeah. Anyway, back to so you're learning PHP and Laravel at the same time, which is a
Yeah.
pretty tall order. And how does that on ramp feel? Are you feeling like support the documentation in my opinion on Laravel is like very good. It's kind of a gold standard thing. Are you feeling that or are you feeling confused? Like how's it been going?
I feel like the Laravel documentation's amazing. So I really enjoy the documentation. I think for me, it's like sometimes like the stuff I'm doing, especially the work stuff I'm doing, where I'm like rewriting this graph traversal thing from TypeScript to Laravel PHP. Sometimes I run into issues there because it's like, okay, how would I do this in Laravel PHP or in PHP? So then I might find a way that's PHP, but it's really complicated.
Okay.
I ended up like a bunch of nested loops. So it's like you have the for loop and then you have like the regular for each and then it's like array includes. And it's like I could just convert these to collections and then make it a little bit easier, which I've kind of done that recently. Also, there was a weird thing I encountered recently, which I guess isn't weird, but for me it felt kind of weird, which is like if you have a collection that has arrays inside of it, because we're dealing with like kind of complex JSON. So it's like you have a collection with arrays inside of it, but then you can't mutate those arrays unless you were to like loop over them. And it's like, I don't want a map. I just want to like add something to one of them. So then we were like,
Right.
okay, well, you could like the fix I found is like using put and either doing a bunch of if else's to make sure I'm putting everything I need to when I'm like rewriting what was there, or do put and then like spread the original value and add the new one you want. But it's like, I'm like, in JavaScript, I could just use my handy dandy like object notation and instantly do
I know.
it.
Yeah, we don't always have those luxuries in PHP, which is kind of a bummer. But yeah, we have other luxuries. Collections do make it easier. I reach for them more often than not, but I also there's definitely a place for just like a nice vanilla array in good spots. It makes sense. But that's fun. It's fun to like it's been a while since I've like learned a new language at that level and like really tried to like implement. And so I'm just always curious like what people who are actually doing that are experiencing. And I'm a little selfishly like getting a little bit of like user info from you for my job. But so what is the like status of the side project at this point? So like how far have you gotten? You're dynamically generating questions and you're able to, I guess, answer and score them, I assume.
That's
Or not.
That's
Yeah.
basically where I'm at. I got to the point where you hit the submit button and it would like score them. I haven't touched it in like 2 weeks now, so it sits there. But my like plan of attack is to just fix the Axios request there, and then once I have that, to start bringing in reverb to like, because I want to make sure when I bring in reverb and I do the socket stuff that I have it as clean as possible, because I don't want to end up with the mess I had before. So I don't want to spend all this time making like the bare bones more complex by adding in like multiplication, division, the calculus and all of that, and then get to the socket stuff and it like ruins everything. I'd rather get like the super basic part that it's at now and then add in reverb, get that working, and then slowly build from there.
Makes sense. Are you going to end up going in the like calculus, like more advanced mathematics direction or not? That's not even on the radar right now.
It's definitely on the radar, so I want to at least add in like basic derivatives and integrals and stuff. The thing with calculus is it's going to be harder to randomly generate the problems.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But that is like my goal, because I absolutely love calculus. So like selfishly, I want to add it just for me, because that's why I wanted to build the app, is to like do the calculus questions.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you're truly building this to like quiz yourself on calculus and just keep that like fresh while you're doing software, because you're probably not using a lot of calculus in software, I assume.
That, and just for fun, like when this app was still in the App Store, I would be at like Universal Studios or something and be in line, and I would just be doing the quiz.
Yes,
It's
I love
fun
that.
for me, and it's like it's not there, so I wanted that. So it's like I built this app and I did get it working enough to like be able to talk about it in interviews and stuff and get a job. But since then, I didn't touch it. I never got to add calculus to it. It was a mess.
Yep.
So I was like, I want to rebuild this and get it to the point of like why I even built this app to begin with.
Yeah. And so so I assume if there's a multiplayer element outside of the joy of building that, are you going to make this public and let people like use it in that way?
Yeah, so whenever I built it 2 years ago, I had posted about it. So I've had people throughout the years like ask me, like, is this live or can I see this? And it's like,
Yeah.
it'll be deployed eventually. And it never was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
So
best side projects never reach a server, you know what I mean?
it's like, I have so many side projects that are dead too. Like, my GitHub is a little funeral home for them.
Are there any that you would ever revive? Are there any like sort of I like to ask people like do you have a white whale that like you've tried to get or you would love to make happen but you haven't touched it yet?
I have one that I would revive. I do want to finish it because people ask me about it all the time too.
Okay.
It's a pirate dating sim game.
Wait. Pirate dating sim game. Okay. Talk more about that. Tell me more. Okay.
So it was like, so I was building a dating sim game, but I didn't want to just use, like, there's a bunch of libraries out there, like RenPy and certain stuff that already has like the scaffolding set for you.
Okay.
So you just like put in the art and put in your dialogue and then you can like easily build a dating sim game. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to build the scaffolding. So what did I use for it? I used Java and libgdx.
Okay.
And I think it was like Java 9. I might have started with Java 7. It was like old Java.
My God.
And I'm doing this for fun. So I was like, yeah, we're going to do that.
Did you find that enjoyable? Did you find that to be an enjoyable experience?
I feel like I cried a lot. I did.
I think that's a common Java experience. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's like, I even set up my own like dialogue parsing system. So I had like, I made my JSON complicated because of course I did. So my JSON was like, I don't know, like nested like too deep. So I had to build my own way to parse through that and like be able to populate it in the libgdx front end stuff, like the UI stuff.
My God.
So it's like I was connecting them. So it's like, okay, well, here's the first dialogue option. Here's the first dialogue. Here's the text for it. You have these two dialogue options. And it's like based on them, you have these other dialogue options, but you also want certain things like charisma or whatever to be tied to the dialogue options. So then you have to have a way to like traverse through all of that. And I did all of that in Java.
Were you like storing all of that in some like massive object? Is that how you were basically?
Yeah,
Am
I
I
had
like
a big
understanding that
JSON.
correctly? Okay.
Yeah. But
That's a big
I
choice.
made it like a doubly linked list, basically.
Okay.
That's how I structured it. So it was like each one, like whenever it had the dialogue options had like the reference ID of the one it's supposed to go to.
Yes.
And then
yes,
that had
yes.
the reference. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. That makes more sense than the way I was thinking that you were doing it, which I was like, that seems painful.
I don't hate myself that much.
You
Not
did
yet.
choose Java, but I just want to point that out. No, I'm just kidding.
That's why I haven't touched it again. I got sick of Java.
Yeah.
I don't want to do Java anymore. I want a break from Java. I want to go to something else. Like, it was fun to do, but I got past that part. And I basically got it to where everything was showing like it was supposed to. You had all the options. It was like, you click it, it shows you the right thing. So I was like, now I have to do the art. I'm not artsy. I don't want to do the art. And I don't know what I want the dialogue to be. So it's like, maybe I'll come back to it when I have an actual idea for the dialogue and stuff of the game.
Yeah. It's like you kind of solved like the hardest part of it. And the rest is just like decoration. You're like, I don't want to decorate this. Like I've done the thing that's like tickled my brain and I'm kind of like done with it. Is that kind of where you're at? Yeah.
It's like,
that's every
I'm
side
done.
project that has laid by the wayside for me. It's just like, I did the thing that I was like interested in and the rest of this is not fun for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I did the most interesting part that like people would care about me talking about. It's like, and now I'd have to do the art. Like, no, thank you. Let me find something else hard to do.
Hard pass. Thank you very much. Does your math app have a name? Do you call it something?
I think so. I did name it something before. I think I named it like Operation Battles or something.
Okay, cool.
Was the original one.
That.
I just call it Math Quiz App right now because I'm sure I'll find other names eventually.
It's probably a solid idea to not focus on, you're like focusing on the right thing, which is like, let's build it and then we'll figure out what we can call it. That's great. So like the final boss of this seems like dynamically generating calculus stuff. Where do you perceive like, do you have an idea about how you might like try to attack that? Or is that like not even on the plate yet? Because I don't know, but I'll be honest, like I don't think I ever made it to calculus. I did pre-calc, and I
Mhm.
barely remember any of that. So like, I don't even know where the like tar pits are. Like, I'm not sure where the sticky bits are. So like, what is the challenge there for you?
Oh, it would be, I feel like it would be really easy to do the derivatives and integrals, like of just constants. Like that'll be easy. What'll be hard is bringing in like trig and stuff like that, especially like integrals and stuff, because then I don't know. It, yeah,
Is the challenge like generating problems that actually make sense and have
that too.
solutions? Is that really like what it is? Is that the core of it, or is it beyond that?
For the trig ones, it's definitely that. Like for the constant ones, that's pretty easy. I don't want to get integrals and derivatives mixed up, but like the derivative of 2x would just be 2. So you just get rid of the x and stuff like that. So like those should all have solutions. The issue for like trig ones is some of them might have solutions, but only on like a certain bound, or there's like multiple of the solutions and stuff. And then it's like you don't want to just generate, like if you're generating a random number also for what's in the trig thing, like sine of like, I don't know, 28 pi or something crazy. Like you want something that makes sense, because a lot of the trig stuff you're using the unit circle and stuff for too. So it's like I'm gonna have to really be careful with those, and it's like especially if you want to go like further and further up and make them more complex.
Yeah.
So I really have to think of like if I want to do that and how I would do that and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's above my pay grade, but I'm glad somebody's working on it. That's
For now.
so is it just like knowing what the bounds are and only generating within those bounds? I feel like that's oversimplifying what you're saying, but it
It's kind of
feels
is like,
adjacent.
also I ran into that issue a little bit with division, right? Because for division you can't divide by 0,
Right.
and there's like some other issues. So it's like you have to do a bunch of like if this check, if that check, and even when you're generating all the answer choices, you have to make sure none of them are equal to each other, stuff like that. So then as you build up the complexity to trig and stuff, there's just way more you have to check. That like even right now I
Interesting.
don't know everything in my head you'd have to check, but it's like
You'll
I,
probably
I
keep
honestly
stumbling across things that are like, oh, I should probably handle that. Oh, that's not quite right. Oh, that's impossible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
also it's like I'm gonna have to figure out how to get it to solve calculus, which I know I'm sure someone out there has done, but it's like I'm gonna have to think of that, or like I know
It's
for
got
sure
to be
someone has.
possible, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be possible. I'm not the person to ask, but I'm sure it's possible. Very cool. What is the like dream scenario for this? Is it just the multiplayer calculus, or do you have like bigger, grander visions at the end of the day?
Sometimes I have grander visions. I would really love if I could get it to the point where it's like you also have like an individual like story route. So it's like
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that'd be really fun if you have a story route. So it's like you start on like Addition Island or something, and then you're like working through it, and it's like building up each time,
Yes.
and then you go to
Yes.
subtraction, like, and it has like a story. So again, kind of bringing in the video game aspect, but I think that would be fun because in Florida we had like an FCAT game we had to play something, and it was like you were like on an alien ship and you went to different islands and you had to like read all these like comprehensive things, and like I want to build something like that. I think it'd be really fun to like implement that.
And that makes it like X more fun for the user. Like that's
Hmm.
so great. Yeah. That's awesome. So, because right now the interface is probably just kind of dashboardy flashcard esque. Is that what you're?
Yeah, kind of like Kahoot or something. It's basically just like a Breeze app. So it's just Breeze, and then you go to the like problems page or quiz page, and it just shows you like the question in a bubble, and then the answer choices under it, and then arrows.
Okay, great, great. Yeah, you should totally build that storification out. That sounds incredible. I love that. During the course of like building this out and like learning Laravel, is there anything that has like uh, delighted you or brought you joy in the course of like being like, oh, that was easy, or that was just like fun to write, or that was a fun puzzle to figure out? Like, does anything pop into your mind about those moments?
The moment I think that I'm always like delighted and like, oh my gosh, is whenever like you set up an app with Breeze, and it's like, oh, there's the auth. Because I was doing Mern. I was doing Mern for so long and doing these like tutorials, because that's how I learned authentication and stuff is through Mern, right? So then you're doing tutorials, but then one of the dependencies they used is outdated. So whenever you bring it in, it's a different version, and then you're in dependency hell, and then you can't figure out how to get auth set up, and then you throw it away.
Man. Okay, so then basically just like having that stuff, like having a first party solution out of the box is like
Hmm.
delightful. Yeah.
It's
I watch
beautiful.
all the auth chatter on Twitter and I'm like, that concerns me not. I do not think about that. I hasn't thought about that in a long time. I'm happy to never be hand rolling auth again. I'm just like in a very happy place with Breeze and Jetstream and Laravel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Cool. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Anything you want to talk about the app? Like I'm all ears, but if we've covered it, I'm also happy.
I think we mainly covered it because I haven't
Okay.
gotten too far in any.
Okay. No, that's great. But it's exciting. It's always exciting to spin up a project with tech that you're not familiar with and try to like work through or that you're less familiar with. I should say not familiar, but and work through and figure out like, okay, how does it work in this scenario or how does this language accomplish the same thing? And you have such a foundation in like JavaScript and TypeScript that like that transition must be interesting because those languages do operate very differently than each other in certain scenarios. Do you miss like a better sense of like concurrency that you have in JavaScript, or is that not? I get this may not be coming into play so much with this app, but like the fact that we don't have like proper async
Hmm.
in PHP, does that just I'm just curious if that like bugs you or you haven't even thought about it.
I feel like I haven't ran into that yet.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I haven't like
Yeah.
ran into that where it's as big of an issue yet. I'd say the main pain point that I've really hit with PHP lately is what I was telling you about the JSON stuff.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit more about that because I'm curious about what you're working through there.
It's basically we have, okay, so it's a project for a company that has like a text-based RPG game. So a text-based lit RPG game. So it's like a terminal-based game, right? And then we want to do some other stuff to like show for them and stuff like that. So we have complicated JSON of like the data for this game.
Okay.
And I want to traverse through it to do graph traversal stuff. So I want to traverse through it to populate the stuff in a graph and then be able to do that to do like a breadth first search to go over the graph to know like if I'm here at this graph node, am I going to be able to reach this other graph node or is that graph node hidden? So if not, I need to remove it from the graph because I'm trying to like filter the like graph data that we're going to send to the front end. Because before we were doing that on the front end side, which is why it's written in TypeScript and was using graphology. But now we're wanting to do it on the back end because before we were sending all the data to the front end. So they could even see hidden rooms and everything.
Gotcha.
Like, and so then the front end was showing, deciding like, doing the calculation and stuff to know which ones to show the people, but they could still look in the console to actually get all that data. So now we're trying to do the filtering and stuff on the back end. So now I'm using like graph PHP, which isn't quite to the standards of graphology. So that's been a little bit of a pain point too. And then doing it in PHP.
And that's the Graph PHP is like a composer package that you found. Is that
It's
or is that built into PHP? I have no idea. I'm not
it's a composer package
okay.
and it's like, hold on. I'll read it. It's a composer package that is supposed to do like graphing, but it's like mathematical. Yeah, so graph PHP is the mathematical slash graph library. Graph
Okay.
slash network library written in PHP.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. That sounds complicated. Are you making progress? Do you feel like you're moving the ball forward or it's or you're yeah, okay.
So I've been working on it for like 2 weeks. But it's also like because okay, my ticket one of my first tickets in Laravel was like, okay, we have this form. It's not requiring a user to like click the checkbox to submit it. So I did that
Great.
easily. I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
super. Like that was really easy with Laravel.
That's a base hit. We got
Yeah.
that. No problem.
It was like a little line. And then my second ticket is this. It's like, okay, now rewrite this. Like have a list that tracks like which rooms a person has like visited in the game and now filter all this logic and do all this graphing. And it's like, dear Jesus, like I'm like, this is so hard. So this is like my intro to like doing more Laravel PHP stuff for work. I've been working on it for like 2-something weeks and I basically have it all written out, like all of it written out. I'm just trying to figure out like now I have the graph and everything. How do I add in the visited rooms list? like to this logic just to make sure I'm like saying like if the data says this room is hidden, but if the user has already visited it, still show it, like still send that to the front end. So I'm adding in that and also running into weird issues because like the way it was written in TypeScript for one of the things is like, okay, get all the edges of this graph node, and then if that ID isn't in my visited edges list, then drop it from the graph. But whenever you try to like get an edge in the graph PHP stuff, it's like there is no ID on the edge. And it's like, what do you mean? I see the ID right there, but there isn't a method
There has
to get
to be.
the ID.
Is it edgeless? What's happening?
So it's just like that weird like disconnect where you're trying to be like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do, but how do I do it in this specific package that isn't documented super well too?
Are you trying to do any unit testing on this to try to like validate things, or you're not even at that point yet?
I'm not quite at that point. I do have a unit test that I'm just using to like basically see all my logs and stuff of like this. So I have it like the response where it's like add as user to sign in. So I do have a visited rooms list there. And then I can like populate some rooms in it that I know are supposed to be hidden to make sure that like it's using that the visited rooms list to be like, okay, well this is hidden, but since it's in the list, I won't hide it. So I do have some of that set up, but I don't have like an actual unit test for like multiple parts of it because right now I'm just trying to get it
to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel you there. Well, good luck with that. It sounds like quite the project. Is there anything else you wanna chat about? I'm open, but if we've covered it, I'm good.
I think we covered it. I think that's hit the end of my project. So.
I feel like I'm coming out of this with like a lot of things to look up. You were just talking about the things that I was like, I don't really know a lot about that, which is like, part of the great part about having these conversations is like I have a lot to learn. So it's exciting. Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of something that like you wouldn't really touch. Like there's probably a lot of developers who have never done like graph traversal stuff. Like I wouldn't have besides this, I think.
Yeah,
but it's fun because there's a lot of like math behind it too. Even though like the package abstracts a lot of it, like it still feels like a lot of math, and it's still a lot more complicated than email development, which at this stage I welcome all the complexity because I was stuck in email land for so long.
But you also probably have the benefit of understanding a lot of the underlying math concepts that are in this library that probably most developers that are reaching for this are maybe taking that for granted. You have sort of a baseline knowledge of like what this package is actually doing, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's got to be helpful. Like you seem like the right person for the job. So
that
it's just a tough one.
Like leak code. For a little bit, I constantly was doing leak code and code wars and stuff. And so I was doing like the graph traversal and all the binary trees stuff and all that. So it's like, oh, I remember that.
Just kind of flip that switch back onto my brain and we're rolling. Yeah. That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for taking the time to chat. Where can people find you? Where do you want to connect with people? Shout it out.
The easiest places to find me are Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, which I just started YouTube, but hopefully we'll keep that up. But on all of those, I'm under Leah T Codes.
Awesome. Go subscribe to Leah's YouTube channel. Let's get those numbers up. Let's do it.
Make me stay posting Laravel content on there.
There we go. Let's go. More Laravel content on YouTube. Thank you again. I appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me to be on the podcast and talk about my little math quiz app, which hopefully we'll get to the gamification part.
Okay. Keep us posted.
I will.